Really looking forward to this fight. At middleweight, we have England's Tom Breese taking on Russia's Wolverine, Omari Akhmedov. And Matt, I get excited about this fight because you pretty well know the game plan from both of these guys until it comes time for the fight, and then you don't. Because with Omari Akhmedov, very economical with his takedowns. I know in the fight against Chris Weidman, that might contradict what I just said, but throw the Weidman fight out the window and you look at the rest of the guy's performances. He has had some great ones so far in the UFC. And since coming into the promotion in 2013, a total of 8 wins and 4 losses against some pretty good competition. You have to remember, Omari Akhmedov right now ranked at 13th in the UFC's middleweight division. And there's a lot of great fighters in there. I mean, we've seen the rise of Kevin Holland. We've seen a lot of good guys really make that jump here lately. Omari Akhmedov's still there. That fight against Chris Weidman, though, a bit of a weird one because I know Akhmedov, a lot of people were picking him. We both had him to win in that fight, so let's kind of break it down a little bit. Chris Weidman did exactly what Chris Weidman needed to do in that fight, and was wrestle with Omari Akhmedov. And by the third round, Akhmedov was,
to say
spent.
gassed. Yeah.
He was totally spent in that fight. So for Akhmedov, really trying to get back in the win column. You look at his fifth to last fight. It was a draw against Marvin Vettori. Picked up 3 wins. Tim Boach, Zach Cummings, Ian Heinisch. And then, of course, the Weidman fight. For Tom Breese, this is a guy that came into the UFC with so much promise. He was picking up a lot of really big wins. And then the pressure seemed to kind of get to him. I mean, he had anxiety issues, kind of similar issues like we saw Phil DeFries have in the UFC, especially when he was fighting guys like Stipe Miocic. For DeFries, took a little bit of time off, had some losses too, went outside M1 Global, Bellator, now with KSW, and holy frig, Phil DeFries is a big deal. I mean, he was one of our male champs of the year in consideration with a Fight Night Picks Year-End Award. So, Tom Breese, we've seen it. I mean, you look at his last 5 fights. Almost 5 years ago, he beats Kaita Nakamura. He loses to Sean Strickland by split decision. It's going to happen.
No shame.
Strickland, the hotness at the end of 2020. He beats Dan Kelly 2 years ago. Loses to Brendan Allen 10 months ago. Beats KB Buller. A lot of time off between the Dan Kelly win and the loss to Brendan Allen. And I went back and watched that Brendan Allen fight today. Tom Breese was super aggressive in that one. He was working for takedowns. He would kind of jump to the back of Brendan Allen. He was working off of his back. And then as the round was just about to close out, Brendan Allen just started kind of hammering away on him. Tom Breese covered up. I think maybe he was probably trying to wait till the end of the round. But the referee ran in there, ended the fight. Again, Breese looked a little confused. But what he did was he came back out just a few months ago and fought Canada's KB Buller. Matt, there were a lot of people high on KB Buller, but the one thing that I have to say about that fight, KB Buller was not ready for prime time. Like, not at all. You look at that fight, Tom Breese lands a heavy right hand. He lands, and they call it this on Tapology. He knocked him out with a power jab and TKO. And if you look at it, we love it when a guy throws a jab out there with a lot of whip. You see the whip in the shot, and you see Buller just land on his back. A lot of hammer fists from Tom Breese, and the fight's over. When Tom Breese is on, he is one of the most dangerous guys that you could fight. But when he's not on, you kind of have to worry.
We can say when he's on, but here's the thing. The 3 times he's been on in the last 5 years, he beat Kaita Nakamura. He beat an old Daniel Kelly, and I believe that was Daniel Kelly's last fight in the UFC. And then he beat a guy who wasn't ready for the UFC to begin with, and KB Buller. It's not that I don't like the skills of Tom Breese. It's just that when you look at his recent wins, they're not against an impressive level of competition in the least bit. And yes, the Brendan Allen fight, you can argue about the stoppage. He got beat pretty bad in that fight when he did get onto his back. And yes, it was near the end of the round, but if Brendan Allen was able to get a takedown in the second round and was able to get more ground and pound off, the finish was going to come. He got beat at the end of that round. I don't think that's a very controversial stoppage. It's all. For Omari Akhmedov, he is really weird because he will fight to the level of his competition. And you go all the way back and you're like, oh, damn, he had a draw against Marvin Vettori. He did, but very different Marvin Vettori than the one that we're dealing with nowadays. But his style, Akhmedov's style, is the exact same as it was back in that fight. He fights in a very Ian Heinisch way of fighting, and it's kind of funny because he did fight him later on, but he kind of keeps the same pace throughout the fight. And the Omari Akhmedov that you're going to deal with in the first round is the same one that you're going to deal in the third round. unless his opponents wrestle him. It's really weird. When he's wrestling his opponents, they're the ones who get tired. But if you can bring a very wrestling heavy game plan to him, and that's really how Vettori tried to fight Akhmedov. He tried to wrestle Akhmedov, and that's what sort of drained the gas tank of Akhmedov. And of course, the Chris Weidman performance. Akhmedov's looking really good, and then Chris Weidman's able to get the takedowns, really able to dominate the positions on the ground. And that's when you just see the gas tank of Omari Akhmedov slowly start to drain throughout the fight. So I think this will be an interesting fight. If Tom Breese can keep this fight on the feet, he's got beautiful boxing, really good power in both hands. He's not a guy who relies on just his power hand. He can throw the lead jab. He can throw a lead hook. He has a very good, just really a nice toolbox of striking. Whereas Omari Akhmedov, super boxing heavy, he will throw some very labored hooks. And if you are a good wrestler, you can get in on his hips that way. Now, of course, he's a good wrestler himself. It's not like anyone can go out there and just start taking down Omari Akhmedov. Akhmedov is the more well-rounded out of the two, though. I think if he is able to go out there and start getting takedowns, it will drain some of that power that Tom Breese is known for. And the fact that Tom Breese, you look at those last 2 wins that he has. Okay, Daniel Kelly, a really good judoka who had knees that were just full of, that like Q-tape and a bunch of bands and whatnot. Or Omari Akhmedov, who, yeah, he lost to Chris Weidman, who is a little advanced at this stage of his career. But he lost a wrestling match against Chris Weidman, and I don't really think you can take anything negative away from that.
And I mean, with Omari Akhmedov, his base international master of combat sambo and hand-to-hand combat, and obviously it definitely shows as I stutter slightly. You look at the quality of opponent that he's had, and it's consistently gotten better, and he has some very good wins in his UFC career. Again, we went through the last 3. Tim Boetsch, we haven't seen him in a long time. Zach Cummins, he won his last fight. And Ian Heinisch, who, if he's Bangkok ready, he can conquer the entire world. The loss is tricky, but Chris Weidman, say what you will about him. Wrestling's his bread and butter. He went back to it, and it won him that fight ultimately. With Tom Breese, this could be an X factor. This is really silly, so don't consider it a whole lot. But right now, if you look on Topology, KB Buller is the 123rd ranked middleweight in the world. Omari Akhmedov is the 14th ranked middleweight in the world. You don't go from 123 to 14 very often, but for Tom Breese, it's kind of like, well, we lost a few years. Let's get him going, because if we are, this is the time to do it. 29 years old, he trains with a high quality of guys over in England. He spent time in TriStar, and one of those funny comments that really stuck in my mind, go back and check it out. It was when Tom Breese went to fight Brendan Allen, and in our comments section, it was former coach Eric with TriStar really talked about the improvements of Tom Breese's ground game and the fact that at the time he thought Tom Breese was going to have a better ground game than Brendan Allen. And a lot of commenters laughed Eric off. I thought it was a little weird. And then you go out there and you see that Tom Breese has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and is not afraid to use it, because a lot of people just figure, oh, he's a boxer. Oh, he's a southpaw. We're going to see, X, Y, and Z out of him. But he seems to kind of just add things to his game. And the time off, while, he had to work through his own struggles, he definitely improved as a martial artist. It wasn't like we get just B-level Tom Breese from when he came in. He's consistently made improvements. Now, again, you want to point to those losses. Sean Strickland, 4.5 years ago. You can't put a lot of stock into it. You look at the loss to Brendan Allen. It's a tricky one, but again, he was very aggressive in that fight until Brendan Allen really got on top and just started hammering away like an old-time hockey fight before the referee jumped in. So, if we have a look at the odds, Matt, I was a little bit surprised by them. Tom Breese went from a minus 140 open to a minus 150. Omari Akhmedov open plus 120 now at a plus 145. For the ranked fighter in Omari Akhmedov, over on Tapology out of the total votes, they're close, 1,053 so far. 54% Akhmedov, 81% have him to win by decision. If you look at Tom Breese, 46% of voters have him to win, 34% by decision, 55% by knockout. I gotta say this though, Omari Akhmedov is a very tough guy to knock out, so that would be a huge feather in the cap of Tom Breese. Out of Omari Akhmedov's UFC losses, yes, he lost to Gunnar Nelson by sub back in 2014, Sergio Moraes back in 2015 by, TKO, and by knees to Alessio Zaleski dos Santos back in 2016.
Down at 170, though.
Since then, wins over Kyle Noak, Abdulrazak Al-Hassan, the draw against Vettori, and so on and so forth. Omari Akhmedov is a tough guy to try and solve, and that's really the thing. You brought up a really good point. If Omari Akhmedov is able to set up the wrestling early in the first round, I think that's a huge path to victory for him. I think having the fight in Abu Dhabi really, benefits Omari Akhmedov. You're a lot closer to home in this one. You're going to have a lot of teammates and a lot of guys close to you in Abu Dhabi getting ready for this one. But again, For Tom Breese, whether it was at TriStar or whether it is now back home in England, continues to make gains in his overall game. And he looked like a bat out of hell in the Allen fight that he lost and in the KB Buller fight. And I get it. Buller was starting to set up his kicks in that one until Tom Breese threw out the power jab and knocked him on his ass. So overall, I love this fight. What's your pick for this one?
I like Omari Akhmedov in this fight. I just know what I'm going to get from him. And sometimes it works to his detriment. Again, we saw that against Chris Weidman. But the guys who Akhmedov struggle with are the guys like Alessio, Zaleski, or Santos, where they're very dynamic strikers who can throw a lot of different looks at you, or the Chris Weidmans who are extremely dominant wrestlers. I don't really see Tom Breese as either one of those archetypes, so I'm going to go with Omari Akhmedov as another underdog pick.
Matt, I'm going to disagree with you in this one. Again, this is a pretty volatile one because if Omari Akhmedov is able to work his game plan in the first round, then maybe I look at it as a live option going from 1 to 2, because if he starts to just chain, and Tom Breese doesn't have a lot of success off his back, isn't able to fish for those submissions, I don't think that it's going to work for him in rounds 2 and 3. So maybe that's an option for you. I'm not going to throw this one into a parlay or anything, but I do like Tom Breese based on the fact that I do believe he is quite a dynamic striker. I'm all right with his takedown defense in this one. And again, he is very aggressive, and I think that could work for him against a guy like Omari Akhmedov. And maybe, again, if the round goes from 2 to 3 and it is an Akhmedov working a lot of the takedowns, maybe I do end up with Tom Breese on my card. But overall, disagreeing on this one, I'm going with England's Tom Breese. You are going with Russia's Omari Akhmedov. It should be a great card. We have a great co-main event. And Carlos Condit taking on Matt Brown, a fight that could have happened 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And in our main event, Max Holloway taking on Calvin Kattar. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. As we always say, let's get into it.